Alright, let me just try to recall this as best I can. It happened a while back, and I try to think about it any more than I have to. For starters, I used to work in a gas station, but the title made that obvious enough, I guess. It wasn't a place in the middle of the city, but it wasn't, way out in the countryside either. It was one of those awkward in between areas where mostly it's just like low end houses, fast food joints, gas stations, like the one that hired me. The station was on a 2-lane road that wasn't far from a major highway, and we got a lot of people stopping in for gas who were on their way to the beach for the weekend or just passing through on their way to cities around us. Typical of any gas station like the one I worked at, if I do say so myself, but you see, that was, during normal hours. Once the sun went down, ooh, that's when the fun really started, I guess you could say. That was when all the freaks showed up. Late at night, all the shader customers would show their repulsive faces. Drunks would stumble through the doors and keep on going right to the back of the wall where they kept all the alcohol. Teenagers would sneak in trying to buy cigarettes. I ID all of them, and some of the cards they showed me looked fake. Some didn't, but to be honest with you, I didn't really care. If they look fake, if they wanted to wreck their health, it was their business, not my business. And it's important to mention, though, that at this gas station, it wasn't the best part, of town, I guess you could say. So there was glass behind us. There was, a glass pane behind us. And this is way before COVID. Potheads would wander into and load up on chips and ice cream. Oh, God. The ones who would buy ice cream were a funny bunch. Let me tell you, more often than not, they asked for a spoon with their ice cream, and they only had crappy plastic kind. I had one idiot stand there for 20 minutes trying to scoop the dessert into his mouth with one of those, bendy, crappy spoons. One time, a guy shoplifted the store right in front of me. Around midnight, then he walked outside, killed the cops on himself, and just stood there in the parking area for them to show up. I had followed him outside and asked him what his deal was. To me and said that he just wanted a place to sleep for the night. Well, interesting, but alright. I hadn't expected that, but I told him that if he wanted to sell the story, he should probably keep running. That he did, and he walked off the property and down a small road. I heard sirens not long after, but I suppose I should tell you about the big one, the fucker who made me quit that job. I have a tendency to ramble, like I said. I try not to think about it too much about this guy. It was another graveyard shift, another night of my life spent behind a cheap wooden counter in glass. I was pissing my life away, but I was doing it for some money at least. So, it wasn't too bad. And I was better off than most other people, though, who walked through those doors anyway, at least during the nighttime. It was about 2:20 a.m. or so. I remember staring at the clock in boredom, watching the two dots of the display tick on and off as it counted the seconds. That was when I heard the bell over the door, and I looked up to gauge the person who just stepped in my little world. He was, only a little bit over 5 feet tall and looked like he'd be around, mid-50s. His skin was rough and saggy. His arms and legs were dotted all over with tiny white hairs, matched by equally white hair, which hung down in long reams from his head. It was scraggly and, matted young. The guy looked like he spent 2 weeks without the good graces of any shampoo or deodorant. I mean, he honestly smelled so bad. He slowly walked his way over the counter, mechanically, like each step was a deliberate action. Finally, he made it over to me. Then he thumped his hands onto the counter for support. His hands were crisscrossed with various veins. They looked like cracks in broken glass. Lines of black grit ran underneath the edges of his fingernails. He finally opened up his mouth to speak and gave me a good view of his slimy yellow teeth that were only, half there, as his other teeth was, already fall out. He asked in a croaky voice where our bathroom was, and I just pointed sternly towards the back corner of the room. There was a little hallway which led doors to the storage rooms and one small bathroom. He lumbered off in that general direction, and I silently thanked God that weirdo was out of my face. I heard the door click shut, and the station was silent for 5 minutes, then 10, and then 15. Okay, Now it started to get weird. How long was this guy taking in the bathroom? If this were a normal looking guy, I wouldn't have questioned it, but the man in there was anything but normal. At around the 20-minute mark, or a little bit more than that, I guess, I journeyed out from behind the counter toward the bathroom. I knocked on the door a couple times and asked if the guy needed any help. I heard him mumble from the other side that he was fine, but he didn't sound all that fine to me. I wasn't about to argue with him, though, so I just walked back over to the counter and sat down in my chair. Another 10 minutes went by, and the guy still had not come out of the bathroom. Okay, now I was kind of getting agitated at this point. Eventually, I started hearing a noise. At first, I couldn't really tell what it was, but it didn't take long to figure it out. I was hearing moaning. Oh my god. I just realized that I was hearing moaning. I did not notice it at the time, and now that I'm writing the story, oh my god, I'm moaning. Okay, you know what? I'm getting too off topic. I apologize. I started walking back to the bathroom once again. This time I could tell as I neared the door that something definitely was not right. It sounded like the man was in pain, maybe even afraid. Sheepishly, I knocked on the door once again, and for a while I didn't get a response, but eventually the man managed to choke out two simple words: help me. His moaning was getting louder and turning to yelling. I started hearing banging coming from the inside of the door. I couldn't even feel it shake the floor a little bit. I went for the knob, but of course the man locked himself in the bathroom and hadn't gone around to try and unlock it. Now, the problem with this is that it only locks from the outside. And the manager did have the key to the bathroom, though, but the manager was definitely not going to come in at 3 in the morning, and I didn't have a key. No one had a key, and and the only way that it would unlock those that if you had a special key. And I don't mean just like you could use like a needle though, or like a bobby pin. No. You need like a full ass, like giant ass key in order to open it. I don't know what the hell why, but yeah. I tried to tell him that he had to unlock the door if he wanted help, of course, but he wasn't listening to me. He started babbling some incoherent nonsense about how he had to keep the door locked because he was only safe in that room. They were coming for him, whoever that was, whoever they was, he said. I kept shouting at him to unlock the door, but he was off on a horrible tangent about how they were coming for him and how they finally had figured him out. All the while, his slurred speech was punctuated by cries for help. He just kept shouting for help, 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 help. I kept hearing banging, banging, banging. I was freaked out, and in that moment, I didn't figure out I had the time to call the cops or anything like that. The man's speech was trailing off, and he sounded like he was in a very bad way. I like to say that I didn't freak out, but that I knew what to do and handle the situation in a respectable way, but I did none of that. I spent the next probably 5 minutes pacing the little hallway, my hands pressed to my heads in desperation while I tried to think of anything to do. The man zillion failing head spot I noticed, and I was desperate to do something. Finally, I was struggling with inspiration. I went into the storage room next to me, and I grabbed a rolling dolly that we used to move some the heavier crates around. Then I rushed back into the hallway, and with all the force I could muster, which must have been a lot thanks to the adrenaline, I bashed the door wide open. The smell hit me like a ton of bricks, and almost made me throw up right then and there. I dropped the rolling dolly and stumbled away from the room, gagging and coughing. I almost fell over as I steadied myself on a wine shelf. I'd take a moment to catch myself, and it felt like I was going insane. It really struck me then that I needed outside help, so I did what any sensible person would have done a while back. I called the police, and I assumed the worst. In the moment I saw the man, it looked like he was certainly dead. He was sprawled out on the floor, half-heartedly resting against the wall. His back was slumped down, curving in the space, and I did not hear anything that he was doing. His knuckles were bloody, and he looked like his face was blue, like a dark white blue. It was obvious enough that the smell was coming from him. The bastard was sitting on a putrid fermented brown liquid. Yes, he shit himself. He wasn't even on the toilet, for Christ's sakes. Fucking hell. I stalled in line with the police. I did my best to describe the scene as much as I could. I really didn't want to know what happened to that guy in the bathroom. I figured he could still need help, though, but it didn't seem like he was alive. I announced to the operator that I was going back in. I held out hope that he was still alive, but feared otherwise. I guess I really went back into that hallway just out of morbid curiosity, really. more than anything else. I had to pull my shirt and cover my face with it to keep the smell from overpowering me and making it's just to make sure I did not throw up. To be honest, I'm glad that I don't have a really bad gag reflex, or else I would have definitely thrown up. The guy had a yellowish powder all around his nose and his mouth, as well as a little froth on the corners of his lips. His eyes were bloodshot and glazed over. So elaborate that looked like that he'd overdosed on some drug, and I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go outside and get some fresh air. Man had just died next to me, for God's sakes. At the most, I was out there for like 5 minutes, and then I hear the sirens. But the thing that really messed me up bad was when the police arrived. They asked me to show them where the incident had occurred. An ambulance was there as well, and the paramedics were getting the equipment. I led them all to the back. It still smelled horrible. There were still punch marks on the wall, and there was some of that drug powder dusted around the floor, but the man who'd been laying there was gone. He was just fucking gone. Yes, he actually did die like that, like he hadn't even been there. I don't mean he was gone in the sense like he got up and left. No. There weren't any boot prints, no streaks of liquid on the floor, no handprints on the wall. There was none of that. It's like he just vanished. I honestly just can't explain it. I don't know what happened the rest of that night. I quit a few days later, and I couldn't keep going back there. Not after all that, the things the guy did keep replaying in my head for a little bit, and I still have had some nightmares since then. Those things about how they were coming for him. God help me. Word to the wise. Don't work the graveyard shift at a gas station, because you never know what kind of fucking weirdos you're gonna find.